Alright guys, welcome back to the second part of our common questions videos. I gathered a few more to throw at you, and just like the last one, a little controversial one at the end here, so we'll keep things interesting. Again, I know these just talking videos can get boring, so we'll keep it nice, short, sweet. We'll get that info out to you guys. Let's get into it. So the first question in this video, really common one. Why is my ABS, Trac off, and SBS light on? So these three lights will come on together when there's an error in your wheel speed sensors. Now usually we'll point to a bad sensor, and it actually will almost hand in hand go with a bearing going bad. Now a bearing going bad, you'll get a loud hum, specifically, you know, if you turn and put weight on that wheel, it'll hum louder. This is talking specifically with the electrical though. Just because the sensor's bad doesn't mean the wheel bearing's bad. Having said that, we don't have the luxury of just changing sensors. It's actually all one unit. Now with that, the actual wiring from each wheel speed sensor can become otherwise compromised, you know, whether it's a break or a nick in it, it's grounding out. Between the actual wheel speed sensors and the brake control module, which is actually in the front driver's part of the car, inside the bumper, usually tucked beneath your washer fluid reservoir. Between personal experience and hearing from others out there, very mixed reviews as to what's good, what's bad as far as brand. Personally, I run Timken. And not only is it a good quality bearing, but the sensor seems to last a very long time too. I actually had good luck years ago on my old daily that, you know, I spent the least amount of money to keep it going because it was just that, a very cheap daily car. And the Detroit axle ones off eBay actually worked really well for the 3 years I had the car and never gave me lights. It's really, you know, a stab at the dartboard. With which one is actually good. And I'll also link the video right here for you guys to help give you a look at what it takes to change a wheel bearing. Our next question, this is a little more of a cosmetic one. So if you own a Grand Am or Alero, if you haven't noticed, you're gonna notice now after I tell you this. The dashboards are very well known for curling. So basically the sun beats on the dash through the windshield, and the type of stuff they use to make it doesn't like that, so it actually curls away from the windshield. I've only seen a few personally that aren't, and it's usually cars that are stuck in garages for years. My brother's being an example. It spent some 5-6 years in a storage unit, and it was garage kept before then, so his dash isn't grilled. It wasn't too recent that I actually addressed my own. I took advantage of having my windshield out, and I actually went the route of I took a heat gun with a little bit of just spray glue, and then I actually screwed it down. So kind of like a double thing there, maybe a little too extra, but it's down, you don't notice it, and it worked. Some people just try the re-gluing. You know, they get re-glue up in there and somehow pinch it down to let it settle. I will tell you, with the dash being the two-piece kind of thing going on, the outer shell, if you take it off, you can actually peel off that top layer that's curled, and you'll have just a plastic skeleton. I've seen on eBay they sell these caps that I'm guessing, I've never really heard from anyone buying one to really check it out. They're like $100 and something bucks, but they come in a variety of colors, and it appears to be the part that goes right back on there. You know, but that's another route you could take that outer shell off, re-glue it, do what you're gonna do, and then reinstall it. That's a little more hands-on. There's a ton of 10mm and 7mm screws all around. Another route that people use is taking fuel hose, you know, just some rubber fuel hose, specifically 3/8 inner diameter with a 5/8 outer diameter. And basically they're just stuffing it between the windshield and the dash all the way across, and that will keep that down. Seems to be a really good solution. So a couple different ideas for you there. But like I said, if you didn't notice it, you're gonna notice it now because it's almost all of them do it. So this next question, it's almost like a GM-wide thing. I'm not sure why, but why does my car whine while turning? Well, the good answer for that is power steering. Right off the bat, check your fluid, make sure it's to where it needs to be, whether the car is cold, whether the car warm, there is a difference. Check for leaks, trace the lines down to the rack, kind of inspect the rack, check underneath the car, leave cardboard underneath the car to see if there's anything dripping. If you are low on fluid, it's got to go somewhere. If all of that checks out, then it's your pump. It's very common that the pumps themselves just go out, you get the whine, you change them, you go about your day. It's not anything detrimental, it's kind of annoying. You may still have some power steering. You might not notice it doing anything just yet, but eventually it will. I had actually changed mine on the boosted car. I got a brand new car doing one. Drove the car in summer, parked it. No issues, no noises, nothing. When I first fired the car up for the season, this year actually, it was whining really loudly, so we checked everything, nothing leaked. Reservoir was full, so I ended up putting a claim into Rock Auto, and they didn't sell that particular one, so they gave me store credit, which I then ended up buying an AC Delco one. I installed that, and it's been great since. I did one round of bleeding on it, and it hasn't made noise. So, even new pumps can have issues. For this question, we're kind of just scratching the surface on typical V6 problems. This question is why my temp gauge goes a little above half. Is this normal? And it actually can be. If you've watched it for months and it does that same thing, more than likely, that's just where your car sits. As long as your car is not at 3/4, in the red, it's more likely fine. If it happens to travel above that half mark and is kind of heading towards 3/4, make sure you shut down, check everything over, make sure it's got coolant, stuff like that. If you are losing somehow, if your reservoir is low, you can rent a pressure tester tool, and it's real easy. It hooks on the coolant bottle, and you can pressurize the system and find leaks. I'll link the one where I actually do that bottle test. Another quick way to check for low fluid is turn your heat on full blast. And if it's not hot like it should be, there's a good chance that you're low on coolant. Now with all that in mind, and how I said, your car may just sit there, not all the factory gauges are 100% accurate. I'm sure there's a certain tolerance, and they leave it like that. And they're also not all consistent. For example, what your 2002 Pontiac Grand Am with a V6 coolant gauge sits at might not necessarily be the same as your friend's, with the same 2002 Pontiac Grand Am with a V6. His may sit, different. A real good way to look at that, they sell Bluetooth readers. Basically, you plug it into your OBD2. There's apps on your phone you get, and you can actually get the real-time number of what your temperature gauge is reading. Whether that be 190, whether it actually be 210. Then you can get a better idea as to where you're sitting. I've seen them up to 15 degrees off in a direction from what the gauge on the actual dash shows. Okay, so for our final question / discussion here, we'll get a little controversial. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about both motor and transmission swaps. We get these questions all the time. I'm gonna put some real quick info out there on it. I'm gonna try to stay on the neutral side with it, as I have done my own version of swaps, so I can tell you my opinion. You can have your own. Others watching this know who they are and why they're slightly being called out. So the real question that's always asked I like it, but it's annoying, and we'll get to why it's annoying. Can I swap a 3.8 supercharged into my Grand Am? The real answer to that is no, and we're gonna go ahead and end the video right there. Totally kidding. We'll come to that in a second. A question that goes with that is, what motors can I swap in? And what I'll tell you guys is what has been done, which basically the most common is a 3.5 out of a G6. I will be doing a video in the future on that because not only is my car already 3.5 swap, but we actually just recently made a decision that Tanner's car is also going to get the 3.5 swap to go along with some other stuff that you guys will be hearing about here in the next week or so. Another one is people will go to the 2.2 Ecotech. Ecotech has a great aftermarket support system, simply because the cobalts were and are a big thing. You switch a couple things and boom, you can supercharge it, you can turbo it. There's the possibilities are endless. You even have Saab. Saab had tweaked Ecotechs also. That opens up a whole nother door for you guys. Outside of that, there hasn't really been much for documented swaps. I encourage other swaps. I hate seeing people asking about it but don't really have much of a mechanical background. These cars aren't like others where things just swap in and people have the answers already. 90% of the time you're on your own trying to figure it all out. If you've got the drive, do it, share it, let the world see how you did it too. 2.4 or the Quad 4 actually came in these things in the earlier years of the 5th gen, so that could be swapped in if that's your taste in motors. And then that brings me to our 3.8, our Grand Prix motor. There's a little bit of history there. A couple cars way back in the day did it, but not successfully, and there wasn't any documentation behind it. Those cars are long gone. As of recent, there is one with documented video evidence that it was put in, it runs good, the guy has extensive background in wiring. There is another one in play, still waiting to see the final product of that. Look forward to it. Another one that's been kind of asked before is our 5.3 LS4. With that one, there's been like a handful of pictures of one being put in, but then there's a dead trail after that. And again, you guys have these other ideas of what you want to throw in there. Would love to see it. Would love to see a documentation. If you're not far from me, I'd love to come document it myself, to be honest. I'd like to bring people down to a level to really appreciate what goes into it, because even say a 3.5 swap isn't just throw it in and go. There's a little bit behind it to make it work. We'll move on to transmission swaps real quick. Not just manual, automatic. There have been a couple 4T65 transmission swaps out there, so it is doable. I think we actually plan on doing that along with a 3.5 swap, again with the goodies that will be announced in another video. As far as manual swaps, we have both 5 and 6-speed options. The 5-speed option being the much easier route. If you have a 4-cylinder, you're in luck because these cars came 5-speed with a 4-cylinder, so there's a lot less to go into doing that. For the V6 guys, you have to use the transmission from a NBody, which is a Cavalier between the years of 2000 and 2002, I believe. It still is an F23, just a different bell housing. The other 5-speed that I've heard of and read of is the 282 out of the old Cavaliers from the early 90s. And that brings us to the 6-speed, which, as you guys know, I have. It's difficult in the sense that the parts are hard to find. It took me months to find a flywheel brand new, months and fighting with people to finally find a set of new shifter cables. So that's up to you guys to decide what you want to do with your cars. I'm here to help with what I know. Others in the group are there to help with what they know. It's all part of being a group like this. So, like usual, if you got comments, questions, these specific things, let me know. help you out the best I can like usual. We'll keep these videos going. Don't forget to share all this. When you see the new people pop up in the groups, share this up so we can get the info. Share the other one, the first one we did. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.